We're talking Bad Batch, episode 14, our review and reaction right inside. Come on in.
What's up, everybody? Rob and Chris here from the Jersey Comic Crew. We are talking Bad Batch, episode 14, War-Mantle. This is our review and reaction to this crazy episode. Now, this is your spoiler warning. We're going to talk about the events of the episode within our review, so be wary of that. And before I begin, guys, make sure you smash that like button, hit that subscribe, hit that bell icon, do all the YouTube things that we need you guys to do to keep moving forward. The episode starts off with high action, high impact. We see a clone trooper running away from other clones with weird kind of armor. And we get a distress call from Rex to the Bad Batch saying, hey, we need your help to save this clone. And the Bad Batch reluctantly goes out there. And this is where my tensions begin to rise in the episode, Chris. Because I was like, oh, is this like last week's? Where it's kind of a filler arc and small. But then, you know, throughout the episode, there's that big payoff that, like, we see the beginning of Strom Troopers.
Yeah, I was on the opposite side. I saw the title of the episode and went, oh, this is going to be good. Like,
really?
Yeah, the second I saw War-Mantle as an episode title, I'm like, oh, yeah, we're in the end game now. No pun intended. But, yeah, we see a distress call. Rex, clearly his friend was out there. I thought it might have been the clone trooper from the last two story arcs.
Oh,
because
okay.
the hair was fairly similar, but it wasn't. But yeah, we see him on the planet Daro. It's this foresty kind of moon, kind of like Endor in episode 6, kind of like, you know, some of the planets you go as Cal Kestis in Jedi Fallen Order. You see this massive Imperial base in the side, like inside the mountain, which was and gorgeous scenery. Like the animation's amazing in this episode. And you're right, we start to see kind of the birth of the Stormtrooper in a way. We see a lot of different armors. We see a lot of brand new kind of armor. Some of them had that kind of, they're starting to get that Stormtrooper-ish, like, you know,
Yes.
downward smile on the face mask. The armor looks thicker. The codes are different.
Yeah,
So
that's
all-
huge.
All of this stuff is happening, and the Bad Batch are still kind of in the dark, right? Like, they're like, we were doing a job for Sid, and now we're doing this because it's Rex. So now, like, you know, they're kind of out of their element in a way they've never been before, and I just love that it was like action from the word go.
While all that high action is happening on Daro, we turn to Kamino, where we see the Kaminoans are dealing with the Empire. And they already have the reservations that the Empire is going to push them out. They get final word that they are no longer needing their services. So this sends Lama Su and Nala Se into a tizzy. They're trying to get their own medical ops together to try to run away to kind of like survive. Because they're starting to see a change in the Empire. Like Chris just said, there's new armor, new codes. Everybody's looking different and acting different. What makes them think that they're going to keep the Kaminoans around, especially a political figure like Lama Su?
Yeah, Rob, it was crazy because a couple of reasons. One, we haven't seen Kamino in a while, and I kind of forgot about it, even though it's like part of the massive overall plot. And just to see that, yeah, like their contracts are done. Right? The Empire cut all their contracts. They don't want clones. You know, Project War-Mantle is clearly going ahead of schedule. We see Crosshair and, you know, kind of in talks about what to do next and watching them. I knew once, you know, Nala Se and Lama Su were talking and he was kind of like, gather up everyone we need to escape. I was like, oh no, Crosshair's going to find out and this is going to be bad.
Yep.
But we also see, you know, them shipping off the clones that are on the facility. Like they're keeping them. Are they disposing of them? Are they going to train them up? We see younglings, kind of like, I was a little like, oh no, where's Anakin? You know, we see the youngling troopers kind of like, hey, like, are we going to be soldiers still? Like, and, you know, Nala Se's like, yes, you will, somewhere else. I don't know where. But then we also see the fact that Rampart finds out about this, obviously.
Yes, he does.
And he actually captures Nala Se, but Nala Se, being a scientist and helpful with the cloning process, keeps her and is like, I don't need another politician. And we can assume Lama Su was terminated quite swiftly.
Well, we assume that he is, but we actually didn't hear the gunfire, right?
Exactly.
So he could still be alive. But like Chris was saying, Rampart is obviously launching Project War-Mantle, whatever that is. And I'm thinking that's the change from clones to all these hired guns that want to be loyal to the Empire. They're just not as good as the clones because they're, you know, regular everyday citizens, which makes me believe that this base on Daro is probably a key component in Project War-Mantle. And back on Daro, we see the clone troopers finally open and rescue the clone that was behind the door, and his name is Gregor. And I feel like that's somebody we should know, but I have no idea who this guy is.
Yeah, if anyone watched Rebels out there, which is mostly everyone except for Rob,
Yeah, right.
Gregor he's an older clone. He's with Rex. So when Rex in the beginning is like, hey, there's a friend of mine, I need you to help me out. I'm busy, hopefully with like Ahsoka, doing other things for the rebellion. Like we find out it's Gregor, who is a crazy man. He's a crazy guy. He's kind of loose cannon, as we see in his younger form. He was like this trainee who would train clones in combat. You know, we find out he's captured because he's like, yeah, I'm not doing this for you guys anymore. I don't know what you guys are doing. And he had his kind of moral compass about him. No idea what's going on with his inhibitor chip, if he has one, if he doesn't, because he was more of like a teacher and he wasn't out in the field. But that'll be interesting going forward to see. But we know he survives at least through Rebels because we see him later on.
So when Gregor meets up with the Bad Batch, they're finding their way out. Eventually, they make their way out, and they single Wrecker and Omega. Omega and Wrecker bring the ship over. They start hopping over one by one. Unfortunately, one clone is left behind, and that is our man Hunter. He falls down a mountain, still somehow survives, surrounded by everybody, while his teammates and fellow crew members fly off. Hunter's captured, brought to the jail cell, and eventually we see the one and only Crosshair. And Crosshair says something very interesting I want to highlight to you, Chris.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I wanted the whole gang, but it's only you. You'll have to do, right?
Yeah.
And now this whole time we're like, oh, Crosshair's evil. He's doing this. I'm going back to what I said in a couple episodes before, that Crosshair is playing the double agent. And now that Hunter is there with him, I'm in the strong belief that Hunter and Crosshair are going to work together. He's going to find out he's a double agent, and they're going to somehow break out of this place on Daro, or take down this facility on Daro, and escape with the Bad Batch, thus beginning the big climax of the series when they finally take down a giant major construct for the War-Mantle project that Vice Admiral Rampart has planned.
I could totally see that, and you're right, Rob. That last line was very specifically put there, as far as like, hey, it could be he wanted them all there to kill them all at the same time and prove that he's the best, or there's a lot we haven't seen of Crosshair off screen.
Yes.
You know, when you're telling a story, especially in fantasy format, in comic book format, in, you know, long series format, there's as much story off screen sometimes as there is on, or off the page as there is on the page. That's why sometimes you get flashbacks or you know, there's connective tissue somewhere. I could totally see Crosshair double aging and being like, this is why I wanted to be leader Hunter, because I took it down from the inside, or something like that. Or, you know, again, we still don't know the effects of the blast that on his head. Did it fry his inhibitor chip and he's just playing along?
I think so. That makes sense. It's the only thing that makes sense. And like,
right?
it moves the story forward, because having him be a villain too long, it's kind of, I don't want to say dry, but it's like, all right, how are we going to like elevate his character? Like the next couple episodes, we need to judge his character up, right? He needs some character development. And like this just lines up perfectly with the storyline, with the plot, with him helping out his friends. I think it's going to be fun. And then this also allows Vice Admiral Rampart to create a new right-hand man, a second one that we truly believe is evil, whether it's Sith, whether it's just some crazy bounty hunter, whether it's like some Omega clone trooper, like some other entity introducing a new character into the Bad Batch world.
Well, we also kind of saw that already, right? We saw like Republic commandos from the video games, the guys with the huge armor and the blue, like, you know, Iron Man AI inside. And it took them forever to take those guys down. They're stunning them like 80 times before they short circuit them.
That was cool.
That's another question I had too. I was like, all right, when are we going to stop going to stun and go to kill? Because Wrecker opened the door and was just shooting kill bullets, right? He wasn't trying to stun anybody, but that's going to have to be a discussion there too, because it's like, these guys got thicker armor, these guys are bigger. We might have to just start taking these guys out, and they're not, the fact that they're not clones, that they know now, oh, these aren't our brothers.
That's what it's going to be. If they're not brothers, because anytime before, like, they're a clone, that's my brother. I'm not going to kill my brother unless I have to.
And that was, I think, the hint as well to the CS designation, where they're like, oh, Gregor like echoes like we have to save him, right? Like, we got to go back and get him, compared to like they're trying to scan and he's like, I can't get in. This is a TK order, which from episode 4 is a great, callback, because that is the designation for stormtroopers, like you said.
TK421, why aren't you at your post? TK421, do you copy?
I think we're getting in the beginning of Stormtroopers, the famous Han Solo, like, oh, everything's fine. He's like, TK, what's your order? So I think you're right. I think this is the beginning of clones. We're seeing the different types of clones become Stormtroopers, become people. And I also think Crosshair is going to be kind of caught in the middle of that. Like, it's going to be an interesting 2 episodes. And I know you have a couple questions on how this is going to end, too.
So one of the questions I do have, we kind of have this understanding, me and you, right? That Crosshair and Hunter are going to work together and probably get out. Do you think that the other Bad Batch are going to get more reinforcements, like Rex and the 2 smuggling sisters? I forget their names. Or
the Martez sisters?
Yeah, the Martez sisters, or maybe Cut and Run and all these other people? Or do you think they're just going to find another way to get back in there?
I think they're going to get reinforcements because I think they realize, like, they're not stupid besides Wrecker, but like they realize that, okay, they have Hunter, Crosshair's probably going to show up eventually. They're going to know that they're going to come back for Hunter. You know what I mean? Like, it's like they're not just going to leave him there. So I think they're going to need reinforcements. I think we see Rex show up. We might see some Jedi, ones that are around right now. It's a big possibility Ahsoka shows up. Again, I'm still not sold that Ahsoka will show up. I still think there's a lot of, power and coolness that are just set with this unit because they're just so good at what they do. And now that they have that new card, they could access certain things that they couldn't before. My kind of question for you, that's a really big base, Rob. We saw 1,000 troopers. You're going to tell me there isn't someone even more sinister sitting somewhere in there?
So there is that theory, right? There's a giant base.
Waiting for it the whole episode.
Right? Especially when we see these big armored up guys, right, with the blue lights. Like, obviously somebody's there who's going to be stronger than them, or at least we hope so. Just like watching normal comic books or shown in anime, we're like, all right, there's these guys, but then who's the next big guy, right? You're always on the lookout.
Mini boss, full boss.
So that whoever that person is, I think that's going to be the new right-hand man to Admiral Rampart, right? When Crosshair betrays them, and
You're
he leaves,
sold on it.
I'm sold on it. I'm convinced.
Like, there's no way Crosshair's going to be a bad guy.
There's no way Crosshair stays a bad guy.
He's going to die a martyr.
He might die. I don't know if he's going to die.
I think he's going to die.
So he's leaving, right, the bad guys team, either dying, going to heaven, rest in peace Crosshair, or he's going with the Bad Batch, right? That big bad that's running that base is going to be Vice Admiral Rampart's new guy, right? So that just begs the question, who is this person? If there is a person, right? Is it some big buff guy, even bigger armor, with a giant tank like Wrecker, just mowing people down? Or maybe he's quick and agile, like friggin' Hunter. Or maybe he's like all the Bad Batch in one, and the Kaminoans created this thing. He took the sample, injected it into some subordinate who will listen, and there we go. I think that's really cool. I just don't. It's kind of hard to say it's going to be a clone mix of all of them this early on, right?
Yeah.
Because we have work to do, and maybe like Nala Say is going to start working on that for the Empire, and maybe we'll get that in the next season or 2. I think it's just going to be some Mameluke with big armor. He's going to be just shooting things and running around, jumping, and he's going to give them a run for their money, like the ultimate bounty hunter, like Deathstroke. Like the Star Wars Deathstroke is going to be.
So Cad Bane is going to be it.
Not Cad Bane. Cad Bane's too thin. He's lean.
We saw in like episode 1 that I think could be a part of this. And those are the phase 1 Death Troopers, the fully robotic Death Troopers. Because if you remember, Rampart and Tarkin had them, had Clone Force 99 go against them to see how strong they were and took off those safeties. Could that be the last crazy line of defense where we see kind of like, Mandalorian Season 2 finale, this like massive squad of Death Troopers that are fully automated, right? Because the Empire seems to be testing out some things, right? Seeing how these new quote-unquote stormtroopers are doing. These with people.
I like this. I like this a lot.
Could it be Death Troopers that they have to go, oh, crap, now we got to take these kind of phase 1 Death Troopers out?
Well, here's the thing. Were Death Troopers in the original trilogy?
They were not. They were in the extended universe, which is no longer canon after the Disney purchase of Star Wars, but Mandalorian bringing them back makes them canon, as well as Bad Batch Episode 1 makes them canon.
So what if what if the Death Troopers, right? I like this idea, and there's a bunch of them, but there has to be some reason why they're not in the main trilogy, and that's probably because the Bad Batch at the end of the show destroys all the planets, and then they find them again and rebuild it down the road. That makes sense to me. I could definitely see Death Troopers being like Rampart's like own personal guard, but then like Rampart kind of is in the belief like, hey, I don't need clones. I could use regular people to do the job, right? So like if that's his mindset, him using robot Death Troopers is kind of weird, because it's like, if you use Death Troopers, you would also be the mind that using clones is okay, right? So it's kind of like going against it, but like I do like the idea of Death Troopers having a bunch of Death Troopers, or just one big Death Trooper.
Yeah, just as like the safety net, right? I don't necessarily think it's going to be. I get what you mean by like the similarities, right? Because if you can control the clones with the inhibitor chip, you know, they're robots, they're fully automated, you can control like what they do. But if they're just like indestructible as you're trying to gain more people to join the Empire, right? These are the early days. The Empire isn't in its heyday yet, even though they're already massive. They're not in the heyday of the amount of people that they can fill a Death Star yet. You know what I mean? So I think there's still a chance that they use, you know, hey, we had these Death Troopers around. Rampart and the Empire are all about control, right? It's a control mechanism in every sense of the word. We'll just send them out, and if we lose a Death Trooper or two, but kill them, who cares? They're robots, you know what I mean? So it's like they're also still using the clones, like whatever they have, they're like, all right, we still have them, let's use them, right? Like, why not? And we're taking the kids too, so like, why not use them? So I think if it's there, they might use them, but you never know. I'm hoping for an Inquisitor personally. I
think that'd be great. Guys, we want to hear your comments down below, what you thought of episode 14 of the Bad Batch, War-Mantle. What exactly do you think the War-Mantle project is? Because we didn't get full details on that. Please let us know.
And guys, thanks so much for watching. Give us a thumbs up, like, really helps the channel out a lot. If you're brand new, subscribe and turn on those notifications. You do not want to miss any more of our Bad Batch coverage. There's only 2 episodes left, and you do not want to miss it. And as always, catch us on our social medias at Instagram and Twitter at The Jersey Comic Crew. And I am Chris Heller. That is Rob Moran. We're the Jersey Comic Crew, and we'll see you next time.